Good day. The Sega Dreamcast. Now that is a system I've not talked about for a very long time. The Sega Dreamcast was actually present at this channel's very inception, with one of the earliest reviews on a homebrew port of the Neo Geo CD version of Metal Slug to the Dreamcast. Later on, I would talk about Sonic Adventure, and in a number of intros, the Sega Dreamcast was prominently displayed. Today, we're going to be taking a look at Dynamite Cop, but later we will also be taking a look at Zombie's Revenge and Cannon Spike. Dynamite Cop was one of the games that I rented quite a bit for this particular system, as I enjoyed the gameplay quite a bit, although I was never quite able to complete it. Dynamite Cop holds a special place in my heart when it comes to the Sega Dreamcast. This, along with Sonic Adventure and Marvel vs. Capcom 2, were three of the games that I played the most back in the day, although I did not own any of them, and due to not owning any of them, I ended up selling the system entirely and buying more N64 games. Dynamite Cop is actually a sequel to Dynamite Deca, or as it is known in the US, Die Hard Arcade. This game was developed by AM1 and the Sega Technical Institute, and released in 1996, and was quite ahead of its time in terms of graphics, e.g. the 3D didn't look like complete pixelated garbage. It was a 3D beat-em-up that had you controlling John McClane as he beat the crap out of enemies, all in the attempt to rescue the president's rather diminutive daughter. It is definitely in the Capcom class of beat-em-ups. It had numerous cool and brutal moves that you could pull off, and you could also pick up a bunch of guns, rocket launchers, and most importantly, grandfather clocks. The levels were graphically impressive as well, and you faced rather hilarious enemies that were quite memorable. The game also included everyone's favorite gameplay mechanic, QTEs, and they are especially hard to pull off when you're not sure what buttons are what. They're not too annoying, and even if you fail one, you can continue playing, but you must live with being low-skilled. All told, this is a top bloody tier beat-em-up, and just 2 years later, AM1 would completely outdo themselves with Dynamite Deca 2, aka Dynamite Cop. This game improved upon everything that the first game did, and then ups the complexity by a console generation. Now, instead of John McClane, you have 3 characters to choose from. And in this review, I will be playing as the chick, because as you take damage, the character you control loses articles of clothing. And yes, as an adolescent, I was quite enamored with this feature. You still have a Capcom class beat-em-up. You have numerous combos that you can pull off, and the most important combo by far is the combo to break out of an enemy's grab move. The enemies do love to put the grab on you, and when they do, they can do a tremendous amount of damage. The controls are fluid and responsive, and you never find yourself punching empty air, and you will never find yourself blaming the game when you die. The weapons in this game are even better than in the first, and you get some real interesting implements of destruction. And the most deadly weapon of all, you can pick up the baguette. Sacre bleu! Should have had the Frenchies just ditch the label and use this in World War I. The weapons get cooler and cooler as you progress through the game, and that baguette is why I remember the game a decade and a half hence. The enemies are varied and really fun to fight. You have generic foot soldiers, and you gotta take out some fat bastards, a French chef that tries to turn you into the main course, and then a giant squid. Is this Hentai Cop? The game itself takes place on a cruise ship taken over by pirates, and you guessed it, you have to save the El Presidente's daughter again. She appears to have shrunk in between the two games. In the previous game, she could fit in a desk drawer box thing, which I guess is somewhat plausible, but now she can evidently fit within a piece of luggage. And later in the game, it looks like she's teenaged. Either A, she listens to too much Linkin Park, or B, that's a big-ass bag. There are 3 different ways you can choose from to enter the ship. I always prefer to go feet first into hell. Also, I gotta ask, where does that giant bloody squid come from? Did the pirates bring it? Is this where the ship gets their calamari? The boss fight itself is actually pretty bloody tough because he actually has little minions that can latch onto your face and completely drain your bloody health. QTEs make a return, and they are thankfully as good as they were in the previous game. And just like in the previous game, I have to struggle to figure out what controls the game wants me to use since I'm using an Xbox 360 gamepad. The game's difficulty is balls to the wall, but not ball breaking. You can finish this entire game with just the liberal use of save states, and it will never get too cheap. Although when you face enemies with guns, kill them as quickly as possible, as they can shred you in just a few hits. Voice acting for this game is pure late 90s Japanese cheese that just cannot be replicated today, and it is oh so memorable for its cheesiness. The music is sadly not all that memorable, and is forgotten as soon as you beat the game. The graphics for the game were, in 1999 at least, mind-blowing. 3D never looked this bloody good. The levels were jaw-dropping with their high-quality texture work, and the 3D models were so detailed as to appear almost lifelike, at least for a kid who started on Wolfenstein 3D. This was like something from the future! What's kind of cool is the fact that while the graphics have certainly aged, they have not aged quite as badly as some games that actually came afterwards. The gameplay itself has also aged quite well as well, and I think if Sega commissioned a Dynamite Deca 3 with modern graphics, it would sell quite well today. Dynamite Deca 2 is a pretty short game, as arcade games generally are, but you get about 1 hour worth of gameplay with save states. Beating the game without save states would take considerably longer, as you would need to memorize enemy placement, and you would have to strategize how to beat the game with the limited continues you have access to. As of 2020, this game has not been ported to anything other than the Sega Dreamcast, or while you certainly can play it with RetroArch, that's the only place you can really play it today. I would like to see this game get a remastering and re-release on Steam, as it certainly has enough good going for it that even modern gamers would likely enjoy it. And with that, I am GeneralLotz, wishing you good Zombies Revenge, and good cannon spike, or whatever makes you happy. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing, and if you can, please consider supporting me on Patreon so that I can continue bringing you this awesome content.